Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Sawadee Kap, aloha, and arena. Put young guy. Ohayou gozaimasu, and I don't know many languages, just a couple of Asian languages. But anyway, good morning to you all, and good evening to you all, because it's Sunday Night Live in the U.S. and Sunday Night Live in Europe and Africa, Asia, not like that. Yeah. So, hi, Debbie. Everybody, good to see you're all here. Of course, I'm late. Trying to set up this stuff, but I got it set up pretty good this time. Pretty quick, right? Amazing. So, what I want to do today is get right into things because, these are, anyway, apologize for all this stuff. You all know Ty Bollinger, right? Well, he's coming out with a new video series, right? He did what did he do? He did the truth about cancer, and then he did the truth about vaccine. So he's coming out with another video series now, docu series, interviewing a lot of people, and it's called Remedy. So it should be pretty good. I had a chance to be on it, so it was great. And then all the old usuals like Dr. Mercola, etc., are going to be on it. So it should be fun. I hope that, yeah. Anyway, I won't even say what I hope in that regard. So let me go. Where are these questions here? Good evening, good morning, everyone. Thank you. And I'm grateful to be here. I know my style's not like polished, but I don't know how to do that. So I just kind of just I have this habit of being me, and I can't break it. And what's interesting is how people are. Some people are really good actors, right? And they're good at it, and they can that. And I'm always stuck being me, so that's the problem. I remember when I was a little kid, because I grew up in Hollywood, right? So you'd think I could act, but not growing up there doesn't help anything. But anyway, I grew up there. My mother was in the movie industry, and so I grew up around her hanging out with these actors and actresses and directors and stuff like that. So anyway, I remember sitting as a kid under the table and sitting there thinking that I don't know. I don't even think I had language yet. I don't know how I was thinking this. I think it was pre-verbal, but I was thinking that, wow, everybody is acting. And I knew that one day I would have to act, but I also knew that right now I was spared from that requirement and I was free. So I was like, can you imagine being a little kid thinking such things? But that was me. So anyway, yeah, do me. I have no choice. Thank you, Debbie. But anyway, so that's very interesting. So any actors, a lot of people are really good actors, and they can do it. And hi, my name. I can't do that. Can't do it. I can't. No, I can't. It's not that I don't. I wouldn't want to at times, but I can't. I'm just not. Doesn't work. So anyway, cool. Peter, good day. Looking for guests of Oncobrief. Onkozine Brief. A radio show and podcast about cancer treatment. All right, Peter. Get in touch with me. I love it. I'd love to do something like that. Anyway, let's get to these questions, because there are a lot of them. And what I'm going to try to do is put them here like that. Yeah. Okay. Because I don't know. Am I doing this right? Okay, there we go. Okay, so let's look at last week. Let's see. Any unquestioned? Any Okay, real quickly here from Sally, from the website. What are your thoughts on BCG treatment for high grade bladder cancer, secondary tumor with primary tumor and upper tract since removed? Oh, I'm not sure what you mean, Sally. Upper tract, you mean above the bladder in the ureter? It's actually a kidney cancer. It's a renal cell cancer. Is that what you mean? Upper tract, or just upper part of the bladder, but it's still bladder. But you're saying secondary. In other words, the upper tract has come back since it's moved. Anyway, BCG is always good in bladder cancer. It's always good. Now, in the conventional world, they say that BCG should only be used when it is just involving the lining of the bladder. But if it goes deeper, they say no, you shouldn't do it, which is not true. I mean, I don't agree with that at all. I think it's very important to continue doing it, but especially if it's gone a little deeper, I think what's really, 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 really important is find somebody who knows how to inject ozone. Because you inject ozone a few times into there, and it's going to be miraculous what happens. Okay. Now, this is in addition to doing everything that we all know that we need to do, and that is get rid of those parasites. There are parasites. What was it? The IARC. Um, it's a research branch of the uh, WHO involving chronically fermenting cells, right? Anyway, so what they found was, I think it was in, what was it, 2012, no, even more recent, 2015, 2016, they found that like 20% of all chronically fermenting cells were related somehow to um, parasites. And their estimate is that by 2050, the vast majority of chronically fermenting cells will be related to um, uh, parasites. So, I mean, and when we're talking about parasites, we're talking about helminths, which are worms, which, believe me, regardless of how vegan we are, we get worms because they're in the soil. Part of their life cycle is in the soil. So there's no way like to get away from that. So it's not just eating corpses. For the corpse eaters out there, yeah, you for sure, no, you don't have to think about it. But for those that are vegan, you're still going to get it from the soil. That's just the way it is. But then those are the worms. But then we're talking about the other ones, which are called protozoa, which are single celled organisms. And what these guys do is they like to go inside and live in the cells, kind of like, and the prototype that we all know of is malaria, right? Malaria lives in the red blood cell and is able to eat the protein of the hemoglobin. And that's how, it survives. But there's a lot of intracellular parasites. So anyway, got to get rid of parasites. Got to fix your dental cavitations. You got to find out if they're there. You got to find out if there's gum problems, which most people have, which is inflamed gums, and just poor oral health. Even you think you have white teeth and you're healthy, you got to go to a really good biological dentist and check that out. But that being said, with bladder, you still definitely want to do what I said was the ozone. Okay, so here's a question from Shoko. What can be done about bleeding and stinging sensation due to tumor in vagina from endometrial cancer? Can radiation help, or is there a more natural way to help? How can you protect yourself from the side effects of radiation? I don't really know your situation, Shoko, and specifically, so I can't. It's so hard for me to say to you exactly. However, there are times when radiation is necessary. So I don't know your situation, so sometimes it's necessary. And the way you protect yourself from the effects of radiation, first of all, you get somebody who knows what they are doing with it. And we now know, I think UCLA has it, but there must be a lot of places around the earth that have it, where they combine hyperthermia and and radiotherapy. And when they combine it, they can use much, much less. It's almost like using insulin potentiated therapies. Insulin you can use much, much less because you're targeting. And the hyperthermia seems to do that with radiotherapy. So maybe you could find some place that would do that. But there are times, like, I don't know how bad the pain is. But But when it's excruciatingly painful and starting to impact function, there are a lot of things we can do. Fasting is always great, but it takes a while, and if you're in pain, it's really hard to fast and all that. So, but to help you with pain, as we've mentioned before, that is always use cannabis. Cannabis with THC to CBD 4-to-1. Make it a really potent resin that is extremely purified. Like, make sure they use very small micropore filters. Less than 10. Yeah, it'd be good. The industry standard is like 200, really high micrometers, and but we know funguses can get through at 20. So you really want to be below 10, and that'd be good. Then it's pure. Then you have to get one of those. They're almost like, they look like ice cube trays, but they're in the shape of a suppository, and you can pour the resin in, and then you can put it in the freezer, freeze it down, and then you take them suppository in your rectally suppository. And the reason that is because as we've said in the past, I'm just going to repeat it again for everyone who hasn't heard it, and as a reminder to those of us who have heard it, and that is that the distal 2/3 of the rectum, the veins drain into the main vein called the vena cava, not up through the portal circulation into the liver. Therefore, it doesn't go through the liver, and it doesn't get turned into, modified by phase 1 detoxification into a psychoactive component. So in other words, you don't get high. So you can do these, and you got to use high doses for pain. So you can use 500 milligrams minimum twice a day, maybe 3 times a day. But it's because of its anti-cancer properties, you really want to do it for 90 days, and then even more. At least twice a day for 90 days, and then even more. But for pain, you can do 2 or 3 times a day. You can do that, and it'll get you off that. Now, but otherwise, on the other hand, if pain is being caused by a mass, it's nice to get rid of the mass. Now, depending on what's going on with you, Shoko, I don't know how to specifically answer your situation, but with the appropriate cannabis, you can get off of any opioid. Any opioid. Another question from the website: Are raw hemp seeds healthy to eat? Oh yeah, hemp seeds, flax seeds, chia seeds, way healthy, way healthy. Listen, Jackie, this is from Jackie. I have a friend who has gone to a doctor because she feels like parasites come out all over, like eyes, nose, skin, pores. She has been miserable for about 5 years now, but doctor prescribed medication for mental issues. No one will help her. They haven't taken stool or blood samples, just creams, allergy meds, or junk or other junk. Can she call you for help? She's desperate. She's serious. Yeah, for sure. Call me. I mean, yeah. And here's the thing, even if you do stool tests, and now they're doing DNA stool tests, which are a lot more accurate. I mean, at least you're going to find things that, if there are any DNA fragments from the organisms and stuff like that. So, but other than that, but usually, if it comes up negative, it doesn't mean there's not parasites. And just because there's parasites, if she feels coming out, they don't necessarily live in the GI tract. They don't have to stay in the GI tract. They can live in different parts of the body. So yeah, the doctor, and they gave her stuff for mental issues. That's because allopathic doctors, when they don't know what they're doing, when they don't know how to help someone, then they tell them, there's an expression they say, there's this anatomical structure in the brain called the tentorium, and they say, well, I think the problems are supratentorial. They do this. Doctors talk to each other that way, like just to sound uh, what do they think? Well, I guess they think they're impressing each other. Something I don't really understand. Doctors never have had one for a friend. The only one that's a friend of mine who's an MD, actually is a guy. Well, I know, I like Robert Rowan a lot. I love Frank Schallenberger. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, that's not true. Yeah, but the one guy I really like is a guy that he went to medical school but never practiced, so he's cool. I like him. But anyway, uh, supratentorial means it's in your brain, it's in your mind, and that means they can't find it. They don't know what to do. So we're going to give you an antidepressant, right? The other thing doctors do when they don't know what to do is they give steroids. This is doctors. So if they're giving you steroids, tell them to take the steroids, and if they're giving you psychotropic medication, tell them to take the psychotropic medication and walk out. Yeah, these guys are they're yeah. They don't. You don't. Please keep in mind that doctors really do not think. I promise you. I promise you. I promise you. Scout's honor. I wasn't a scout. I was a Cub Scout. Yeah, but not a Boy Scout. Was I a Boy Scout? Maybe for a little while. Huh. I don't remember. But anyway, honor, honor. They don't tell. They don't. They don't think because it's not. It's prohibited. In medical schools, we learn not to think. We're taught not to think. We're taught to regurgitate blah blah. And blah blah is just another term for rhetoric, right? Uh, anyway, blah blah. So, and that's what they do. So they're just you're not going to get an answer. I mean, all you got to do is go to their. I mean, if you're going to go to a neurologist, you're going to go to a cardiologist, you can go to an oncologist. Go to their professional association for oncology, it's American Society of Clinical Oncology, and go to the guidelines for their physicians. These are not guidelines for their physicians. These are instructions. This is what you must say and must do if you reach this point or that point or this point or this point. Because you're going to ask them, well, why waste your time to go there? Just look it up. Because they're not going, there's nothing new going to come out of them. If they were capable of it a long time ago, before they started medical school, they lost it. By the way, someone said, how do you get in touch with me? Well, there's several ways. An Oasis of Healing is my clinic in Arizona. Been there our 19th year now. It's long before there was all this stuff. And anyway, so it's there through there. And you can also go to drlodi.com, which is my website, and send the questions there. I think it's called hello@drlodi.com. And you can ask them questions. hello@drlodi.com. Yeah, so I want to get back to these questions here, and found the bald spot on the top of their head, wondering if it was parasites, black bags under the eyes, and here's the problem, everybody, and you all know it. You all know it because you're all amazingly well-informed people. So I'm honored that you're here sharing this with me every week. But you all know that they're doing stuff. They are doing stuff to us electromagnetically, and we don't know what that is. And we know it's and now we know it's in our, it's in our food, it's in the air, it's in the rain. I mean, it's like this is an all-out assault, complete all-out assault. By the way, in case you don't know it yet, we're at war. Yeah, we're at war. That's the big problem. We don't know it. Most of us don't know it. So I mean, most of the collective us called humanity doesn't know it. But people are waking up. Unfortunately, not doing much, just waking up, saying, looks pretty bad. Okay. And we're sharing information. And then we comply. There is the problem. Remember, we are the elephant. Anyway, so yeah, most likely, Suzanne, you've got, a bald spot could be what it's called alopecia areata. A lot of times it can be due to stress. And however, can parasites be involved, and the black eyes and all that? And yeah, if you feel fatigued, there's a lot of things that that parasites can do, and they're not going to be found. We're not going to find them and say, "Aha, here it is. That's what's going on." It most of the time is not found. So that is a problem. So what you've got to do is you've got to go to a doctor who and if just first of all, get rid of the parasite problem. Get a biological dentist. Make sure they're a biological dentist. I'm gonna put a list on my my website so that you can see. So whatever state you're in, you can go to someone. Okay, and then so okay, yeah. So and then and heavy metals in my body. Okay, now heavy metals. Yes, we all have heavy metals. Remember, there's rain. There's aluminum rain. These chemtrail. I mean, what's going on? Yeah, we've all got heavy metals. You know, I stopped testing people for heavy metals a few years ago, about 10 years ago, because I have never met anyone who didn't have heavy metal burden, didn't have too much of this and too much of that, and then you're going to say, oh well, I want to do it. I'm going to check him because I want to find out which ones he has or she has. Well, what we find is you treat someone's got to say a lot of aluminum and a lot of lead and not as much cadmium, whatever, for example. And so you give them chelation, and then you check them in 6 months and find out, well, the aluminum's down, but the lead is even higher. And now, wow, look, the mercury's popping up. Does that mean they got re-exposed? That just means that the chelating agent that you use to determine whether or not someone has a heavy metal problem probably grabbed everything it could at that first time, and it didn't grab everything else because these are the most predominant. And now that there's less of that, it can grab other things. Number one. Number two, also, once you start opening the gates and you start pulling them out, they start coming out. So really, these tests are not quantifiable. They're not. It's not like you say, yes, you have more of this than that. No, that's what's being picked up at this moment from this particular chelating agent. All right, so we all have heavy metals. We all need to be on some form of chelation, right? And there's like nowhere we can avoid it unless we move to one of the poles of the planet. Sorry, I have trouble saying that now. It's kind of like the he/she thing, but I don't know what else to call it because I still think it's a planet. I'm sorry, you guys. I know I'm just not up there, right? I haven't figured it out yet, right? Okay, so anyway, for those of us who still think it's a planet, go to one of the poles, and then or it's an island somewhere far away. Otherwise, we're going to be exposed to heavy metals. Yeah, and that's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. So yeah, you got to do that, and you've got to do a lot of other things. You got to do a cleanse, whatever's going on with you, whoever you are. Suzanne, is you got to do colon hydrotherapy twice a week for maybe the first 3 to 4 weeks, and then once a week for maybe 8 weeks, right? And then twice a month for the rest of your life. Eat nothing but uncooked foods. Do a good juice cleanse. Drink lots of juice, fresh juices. Just a little bit of fruit to make it delicious. It's got to be delicious. It's got to be delicious. Anyway, so yeah, so EDTA, heavy metals. EDTA is a great one. Remember the different chelating agents. Like there's EDTA, there's DMPS, there's DMSA. There is, and then of course there's things like chlorella, different plants that do the same thing. Vitamin C is a chelator. So anyway, but if you got a heavy metal burden, big one like we all do, then you want to take these, right? So, and they're different. They get, in other words, a chelating agent will have a higher affinity for specific metals and lesser for other metals. And so when you look up a chelating agent, you can look up at their affinities and you can see, wow, gosh, if I got lead, I for sure got to do EDTA. Yeah. And if I got mercury, I got DMSA, DMPS, but the EDTA gets it too. So maybe you can take two and you can get them orally. You can get them in a suppository form, stuff like that. You don't always have to rely on a doctor. And if you can go online and try to get some of these antiparasitics online, like niclosam.com, NICLOSAM.com for niclosamide, 500 milligrams 3 times a day. You can go to PanCure to get your fenbendazole. You can go to ivermectin's a tough one because of the Fraud and Death Association. They have made things really difficult. But I think people are doctors are starting to prescribe it again. And there must be a way to go online and find it. I know there's some produced in India. I wouldn't trust anything coming out of China. Just can't. You can't at this point. But India is still very righteous. A lot of good quality stuff, but not all of them, of course. Just like not all the places in America are good. I mean, I got to tell you something. I remember one time. I always do whatever I recommend for people. I do. I don't know about your situation with your swollen leg. We'd have to talk because I don't know. If it's usually one leg, there might be a blood clot. Yeah, so maybe I don't know. But anyway, what I was saying was I don't remember what I was talking about, but I get distracted easily. Sorry, guys. Anyway, so chelating agents are important. So are binders. Fulmic and humic acid. Binders very important. Okay, just to grab stuff. And the nice thing about those is they don't bind up the things that you need, the healthy things that you need. Yeah, those are the things. And the other big one is meditation. Meditation, for those of you who don't know, is a way of learning to be quiet, a way to turn off the mind. And the reason we want to turn off the mind is because the mind, if we are thinking at all, about 80% of our thoughts are negative. And the problem is, you might say, well, I'm not that negative. I'm kind of a positive person. But what we don't, another factoid is that 90% of our thoughts are subconscious, meaning we're not aware of them. We're not aware of it. We're not aware of our internal dialogue. We're just not aware of it. So we don't know what we're saying really, but we do know that 80% is negative. And we also know that negative thinking also suppresses our immune system. So we have to learn how to stop thinking, right? And that's what meditation is. Meditation is a way of learning how to stop thinking, how to turn it off. So those of you who are very religious and follow some kind of religious, traditions, don't get confused and think that if you're meditating, you're violating Islam, or you're violating Christianity, or you're violating Judaism, or because you're not. Meditation is learning to shut up. It's really learning how to shut up. And guess what? Guess what happens when you shut up, regardless of who you are, where you are, what your original religious affiliation is. Guess what happens when you shut up? When you truly turn off the mind, you are in a place called now. And where is that? Here, right? So it's another way of saying now here is nowhere, but that's where we are. We're now here. Okay. So if you're in the here and now, the beautiful thing about the here and now is you cannot think about it. Thinking about it is not a possibility. You can only experience it. And so that's it. So experience. Anyway, and guess who lives in the here and now? Guess who you run into down there? God. And for those of you who don't know about God, go meet him. Check it out. Suzanne, you're in Arizona. Well, you gotta. I'll be in Arizona in September, but so I can help you then. But you could, because everybody else there is pretty much. There's so many people with lots of RECNAC going on, lots of chronically fermenting cells going on. So, anyway, so let me go up to these questions here. I wanted to do a few Instagram questions, and let's see. Are we still there? Are we? It's hard for me to tell. Yeah. Okay. So, question is Instagram TB. Can I take Borax for arthritis pain with a history of ER-positive breast cancer? Okay, that's a good question, because what's been happening, interesting, is that I've seen it, and I'm sure you all have. About 6 months ago, 9 months ago, nobody was talking about borax. Remember, our great grandparents were talking about it. We weren't talking about it. Anyway, but it's suddenly come out in all these different protocols, which is pretty cool. And anyway, borax uses but the answer is yes. Okay, first of all, the answer is yes. But borax uses the qualities of there's an element called boron. Like there's on the periodic table, you have hydrogen, helium, lithium, boron, nitrogen, oxygen. Okay, well, boron is one of them. Boron is a metal, and it can form, and most metals, not all metals, can form salts of some sort. So it's a specific salt of boron that is borax, and it's a sodium tetraborate. So it's got like 4. But each one of them is connected with other things like oxygen and things like that. So it's a pretty powerful thing. So, but in physiologically, it's important, really, really important for our bone health, for our growth, and our wound healing. It has a lot to do with our ability to absorb and utilize both calcium and magnesium, which are kind of important. And it can actually decrease C-reactive protein, increases some really important antioxidant enzymes like superoxide dismutase, catalase. These are like really, really important things, and glutathione, right? So these are the major antioxidants, but it helps increase those. And it's protective against oxidative stress. And then the big one is that it is with cancer, and its effect on what do you call it? Let me try to lower this. Its effect on chronically fermenting cells. Yeah. Anyway, so now, so how much can you take? Now, you can also just take boron. You can take the borax. You can take borax baths. You can use it for your teeth. You can, people drink small amounts. They put a little bit of it in water. There's different protocols for it, but it does lots of good things. But it's really, really good for arthritis, and it's an anti-inflammatory in that response, in that degree. Like we just mentioned, it decreases C-reactive protein, but it also decreases some of the other big ones like IL-6 and things like that. So it's good. But you can also take boron. If you can get a liquid mineral drink where you can get all the minerals, would be great. But if you want to get a little extra boron for a while, you can just take Ted, my pleasure. Suzanne, you're in Gilbert Mesa. My gosh, you're like our neighbor. Just call them, call an Oasis of Healing, and tell them you want to talk to me. They'll figure it out. Okay, ask for Maya. Maya will help you. Okay. Anyway, so all right, now the cats are talking to each other. I don't know if y'all can hear that, but anyway. So, but I mean, avocados, apples, pears, greens. Soybeans, lentils, kidney beans. So if it's making a lot of noise, like that, it's got to be a male cat, right? He probably smells something. Why don'tคุยแบบนั้น? Okay. He only understands Thai, so you speak English to him, he just doesn't get it. Anyway, but in terms of, let's say you got a boron pill, they usually come in 8 milligram pills, and you could take like a one couple times a day. They say that the shouldn't go above 20 milligrams, and most all these things like vitamin D, you can't get it above you shouldn't go above 90 or 100, right? And well, gosh, um, I've slowed down a little bit when I found mine to be up around 200, and oh yeah, I'd rather be around 100. I think, yeah, I think that's good. So, um, but anyway, so that's the thing with boron, and with borax, okay. Um, and so they've got, the other thing is it's got, this anti-carcinogenic um, features, right? Um, and we know that it actually lowers the risk of prostate, cervical, breast, colon, right? And it's been used in them to work with them. So really, borax is finally coming into its own. I think it used to be part of every one of our grandparents' knowledge base was borax, and borax again is just a salt of boron. Okay, it's a salt of boron. It's a sodium salt of boron, and um, but anyway, there was some great studies that inhibits angiogenesis in breast cancer. It inhibits angiogenesis, which is new blood vessel growth, and it's not. So if it does it in breast cancer, it's going to do it in prostate. It's going to do it in colon, and all. Because remember everything. Remember something, please. Okay, and this is a very important point that I have to bring up every week. Okay, so anybody who's been diagnosed with a chronically fermenting cell, and what's a chronically fermenting cell? Okay, is what Rockefeller has paid hundreds of billions of dollars for the word cancer, which goes, oh my God. You hear that word. Don't hear that word. Don't listen to that word. The word is nonsense. The word is nonsense. And we've got millions of people that are still around and or died many, many years later from some other cause. But yeah. So it's not the way they boron or borax. Boron is the mineral, and borax is the it's a borate. It's a salt of boron. That's all. So it's just a way of getting higher doses of it. Yeah. No, I'm not talking about hydrogen peroxide. Hydrogen peroxide is fantastic. Hydrogen peroxide is amazing. By the way, if you don't know it, and I'm going to get back to the CFCs, hydrogen peroxide is one of the most ubiquitous molecules in all of biology. It's right up there with water and oxygen, right? It's an intermediate metabolite, and it's things, as metabolism is going this way, it passes through a form called a hydrogen peroxide, which can go in many different ways. I mean, who would have thought that hydrogen peroxide is necessary for our thyroid to produce thyroid hormone? I mean, it does things that and our white blood cells, when they grab something and they're going to kill it, they start producing hydrogen peroxide. Good stuff. But I mean, no, I'm not talking about boron. Anyway, CFCs. So when cells lose their ability to, we should start every show off with this. When cells lose their ability to use oxygen because their mitochondria have been hammered down by living in the 21st century, right? Living with all the toxins and all the lies and the fear and this what we call stress and all that sort of thing. All that stuff is going to result in can result in knocking down mitochondria. And if you knock out the mitochondria, the cell has instructions from God to survive. That's it, regenerate, rejuvenate, and procreate. That's what our bodies were. That's the that's what God has said to all biological organisms: go forth and multiply, regenerate, rejuvenate, and procreate. So these cells, they get knocked off, and what do you call it? The mitochondria get knocked off, which is where oxygen and glucose go in and make all this energy. So when that happens, the cell has to ferment. So it starts fermenting to make energy because that's a primitive form of energy production. The problem is, I just saw another question. The problem is, it's not an efficient way of making energy. In fact, it's 19 times less efficient. Therefore, it needs 19 times more glucose. So it upregulates this and downregulates that, right? It has more insulin receptors. It has more of an enzyme called beta-glucosidase. It does all these things. It goes up. It puts down the p53 gene, puts down the PTEN gene. It doesn't mutate them. It just silences some and turns on others, and it has a new genetic expression. And this new genetic expression is so that this particular cell or group of cells can now survive in its particular microenvironment. Okay, so the genetic expression consequence of so they do a biopsy and they look at it and they go, this is your genetic structure of your cancer. Yeah, no, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's of this particular group of cells in this particular microenvironment. You give me 2 months with someone, let's change their microenvironment. Let's do fasting, cleansing, colon cleansing, meditating. Let's do all that stuff, vitamin C, all the things we do. And then now you take another one and you'll see that it's got a different kind of genetic expression. So genetic expression is a process. It's dynamic. It's not like a fixed thing. Very important to understand. So that's what we're talking about. And I don't like to use the word cancer because cancer comes from Rockefellers and it means you're gonna die. And it's not true. It's not true. It's a lie. And why am I saying that? Why would I say such a thing? How could I say such a thing? Because I've been doing this for decades and I see that not only does it not follow that pathway at all. That's one particular pathway. And what they're usually talking about, and for this, I'll probably get shut down for sure. But the reason that most people with this particular situation die is because they believe the witches and warlocks in the House of Horrors, aka doctors in hospitals. Okay, but from now on, remember, it's chronically fermenting cells. Those guys with the long white coats are witches and warlocks. They're casting spells, they're committing sorcery, and that is the House of Horrors. If you don't know, that's the House of Horrors. Walk in, feel the energy. The energy it's life sucking. Okay, that's where these guys live. Right. So it's what they call treatment for this thing they made up. Hi. Listen, you're not feeling well, right? You're kind of been really sick lately. Let me give you some poison. Let me poison you. And you know what? Before I poison you, I'm going to cut you up, mutilate you, and radiate you. Okay, give you ionizing radiation. What? Yeah. And and that's not even an exaggeration. It just happens to be the precise truth. I would use the word evil, but it's too kind. It's just too kind. They're beyond evil. We kind of got them up with a new word. Remember, we got to come up with a new word. Anyway, so this boron is very good. The other thing the boron does is now there's a question and your question is, can I take the boron for my arthritis, even though I have ER positive breast cancer? And the reason you're asking that question is because you've probably read that the boron is part of one of the necessary it's part of the metabolism of steroid, cholesterol into different kinds of sex hormones like testosterone and estrogens, right? And so that you can increase, and because it does help modulate that. It helps modulate that. So people that are low, there are studies where they show that the boron, i.e., and boron, can actually increase estrogens and stuff like that. So the question is, what's that going to be? No, because here's the thing to remember. Please, everyone, remember this point. One of the most important points is that if whatever you look up, oxygen as a therapeutic modality, as a therapy. Well, it should be good, right? Yeah, but in balance. It's got to be balanced. For example, you put 100% oxygen on your mouth and you breathe 100% oxygen with your mouth just all the time. Within a couple of weeks, you're going to have emphysema. So yeah, it's good at in balance. The universe is in balance. Now, here's the beauty of it. For example, glucose feeds these chronically fermenting cells, right? It's a fuel. It's a fuel source for them. Yeah. Glutamine also feeds chronically fermenting cells. Yes. Okay. Glutamine is the amino acid. Well, therefore, we should stop glutamine and glucose. Can't. It's not possible. And if you had no glutamine and no glucose in your body, you'd be dead. Your lymphocytes need glutamine as a fuel source. Your gut needs glutamine to metabolize and have energy. The glucose is, these things are not only fuel sources, they're also they donate nitrogens and they donate carbons for the carbon skeletons of other molecules. I mean, they're just necessary for synthesis, for us to make amino acids, for us to make fatty acids. I mean, you can't. So the answer is this: we'll never figure it out. There's no way you can manipulate a system whose complexity is beyond comprehension. You can't manipulate it. This goes a little bit higher, this turns that on, that turns this on, this turns, there's no way. There's no way. And the more I learn, and I'm learning every day, there's not a day I don't learn. I don't even have days off. I gotta have one someday soon. You know when I have days off, you know what's really weird is when I fly. Because I'm in the air for like 14 hours and then I wait at an airport. It's like the only days off I get. But anyway, but the more I study, the more I learn, the more I realize that, wow, yeah, in this situation, it's causing a problem. In this situation, it's necessary. And that's what I find with everything. Therefore, here's what we have to do. Now, I want you to understand something too. I want you to think about it. You think about going into a forest or a jungle where there's no humans. If you can find any nowadays. And you're seeing animals living out their natural lifespans. And they don't have degenerative conditions. They don't have arthritis. They don't have gastritis. They don't have cancers, chronically fermenting cells. They don't have, lymphomas or, any of that stuff, right? The degenerative conditions that we call diseases. And that's because they're eating and living naturally, and they're not thinking about it. Now, because what happens when you're living a life that is providing all of your biological, your psychological, and spiritual needs? What happens when you're doing that? When you've balanced your life, you've got to clean out the garbage, of course, because that's part of balancing. If you don't clean out the garbage, you're unbalanced. You're too dirty, right? So it's just okay. So part of balancing, bringing your life into harmony, is cleaning out the garbage, making sure that you're eating food that we were designed for. We're humans. We're not dogs. So we eat human food, and if you don't know what human food is, you'll find out if you keep listening or tune in or go back and look at some of my other previous live streams. But or go in the jungle and try to find a gorilla and an orangutan and see what they're eating. You will figure it out. But anyway, so you're doing all these things. What happens when you get into a condition of balance? When your body, you're now satisfying all your needs and you've got some healthy relationships with other people. Remember, one of the worst emotional things you can do to yourself is to lie to someone you care about or somebody who's significant in your life. Lying produces emotional pus that turns into an emotional abscess that destroys. Okay, so and it's sad because we grow up in a society where you must lie. If you want to get through any requirement in society, you've got to learn to be a good liar. Period. Now, lawyers are the best, but doctors are pretty good too. Anyway, yeah, you got to be a good liar. Lawyer. Anyway, so what's called epigenetic. Epigenetic is a word. Yeah. It mean, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I get what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. So what we're saying is that if you're going back to what we were saying before in a moment ago, is that the environment that we live in, the tumor microenvironment or the microenvironment of our cells is telling. In other words, in order for the cell to survive, it's looking at what's out there and adapting and adjusting and utilizing. So if there's a lot of estrogen, it's doing this. If there's not a lot of estrogen, it's doing that. If it's got these amino acids, it's got, whatever it has, it's going to work with. In other words, it's reacting. The cell is reacting to, and that phenomenon of the stuff that's around the genetics. The genetics is in the nucleus, that little DNA strand in there, right? Is responding to that stuff around there. And yes, that's epigenetics. That's the word, epigenetics. You're absolutely right. So anyway, the point I wanted to get to with all I go off that, but here's the point. You live a life for which we were designed and suited. That means you're not wearing shoes, you're not wearing a lot of clothing, and you're outside all the time, and you're living in the tropics or subtropics. That's where we come from. Now, sadly, not most people are not. They're in the northern hemispheres, and there's a lot of you down there in the southern hemispheres in Australia and New Zealand. But anyway, so we had to adapt. So do your best in those environments where because the hard part is that there's these seasons where things get cold and you can't be outside with your shoes off. But anyway, what happens is that when you are able to achieve a life that is at least really closely approximating what a natural life would be, the divine intelligence of God orchestrates it turns it into you find yourself in a state of being, a condition called health. And health is optimal functioning of the organism. All you have to do is eat right, go to bed early, move around all day, have honest relationships, learn to meditate, and have fun, enjoy yourself, laugh, have sex, do all these things, and you're going to find yourself in a condition of health. And avoid toxins. Now that's the problem. We're living on a planet now where they're on purpose toxic, intoxicating us with all kinds of stuff. Now, I'm going to get off track for a moment, and I just want to respond here to what Catherine is saying. Redox signaling molecules is a talk now, and there's a company called ASEA that has them. But when people are going and getting NAD plus injections, and you're getting things like that, you're getting redox signaling molecules. Redox, antioxidant and oxidation, which is just sharing of electrons, but so is alkalinity and acidity, and so is antioxidant and oxidant, and so is voltage, and it's all just a share of electrons. But redox, the biochemistry of redox is actually the biochemistry of biology, of life. It's how life happens. So it's very fundamental. So if you could get redox signaling molecules in your body, but remember, you can eat them, just like we were talking about with boron, right? If I eat avocados, apples, oranges, grapes, leafy vegetables, and stuff like that, I'm getting boron, right? So anyway, but yes, again. Now, let's go to a next question here. Any difference in dealing with cancer if adenocarcinoma for X versus squamous cell carcinoma regarding HPV? Okay, so, all right, so squamous cell carcinoma and adenocarcinoma are just, again, remember, what is a diagnosis, everyone? Do I recommend molecular hydrogen? Yes, absolutely. Molecular hydrogen, yes. Drink it, inhale it. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, okay. So some people have been told that they have a squamous cell carcinoma. Other people have been told they have an adenocarcinoma. All that means is the type of cell in which the chronically fermenting cell began. So if it began in a gland, it's called adenocarcinoma. So a chronically fermenting condition in the lung, in the prostate, in the pancreas, in the cervix, in the uterus, in the breast, colon, they can all be adenocarcinomas. That just means that it began in a gland. That's all it means. Nothing else. What began? Chronically fermenting cell. Okay, so it's the same thing. It's still a chronically fermenting process that began in the gland versus on some epithelial cells called squamous cells. So squamous cells we have them, here and then inside of our lining of our mouth. And for the cervix, if you all know what a cervix is, yeah, I mean, you all know, I'm sure, but a cervix is at the deep end of a woman's vagina is the cervix. Okay, and the cervix is basically the mouth of the uterus, which is going up behind it, right? Oh, unless you have a retrograde uterus, it's going that way. But anyway, that mouth, also all the cells in the vagina on the walls are of the squamous variety, unless they're glands. So the exocervix, which is that part of the cervix that is usually found on the, like when the doctor's doing a pap smear, or the part you can touch and feel, that's usually a squamous cell. And then there's a transition zone where they've got squamous and some glands. And then inside the uterus, in the which you're still in the cervix, but you're in the endocervix, you're going to have more glands. And glands what are the glands for? The glands are to produce mucus. And by the way, there's a misunderstanding out there that mucus is bad. You want to get because part of it comes from Arnold Ehret many years ago talking about a mucusless diet. He wasn't talking about this kind of mucus. You have to understand, mucus is absolutely an essential part of biology. The mucus that lines our lungs, right? We have this conveyor belt of little hairs called cilia that are moving things outward. So if you breathe in a particle that is too large and would be detrimental to your lung function, it's going to get caught in these hairs, and in the hairs is like a conveyor belt moving everything up into you so you can cough it out. In there is a layer of mucus. The mucus is to capture things and to grab things, and mucus surrounds things, and it's very, very important. And in a woman's reproductive organs, really, really important, because the glands in the uterus respond to levels of hormones. So when a woman's hormones during the first couple weeks, up near around maybe day 11 and 12, the estrogens are really high. That's stimulating the glands to produce a certain kind of mucus that comes out, and the woman recognizes it as discharge. But that mucus that's coming out of the cervix during that particular time, days, I don't know, day 10, 11, 12, 13. I mean, we're talking about a perfect menstrual cycle, 28 days. That mucus that's coming out, when it's metabolized by the bacteria, vaginal bacteria, it produces it's more alkaline, not as acidic as normal. And the mucus is stringy. So if you've ever seen stringy mucus, stringy discharge like that. But the rest of the month, it's not. It's breaks. What's the difference? Different levels of hormones are instructing the glands to produce different kinds of mucus. Well, why? Well, remember, God did all this, right? There's not. I mean, it's by the way, sorry for you guys that don't know. It's not random. There's nothing random in the universe except for the human mind. It's random, completely random. Close your mouth for a minute and just sit there and watch where your mind goes. Tell me that's not random. I should have gone there tomorrow. Yesterday I was going tomorrow. Yeah, she could. We're all over the place, right? Anyway, so it turns out that during the time because 2 or 3 days later, after the estrogen is peaking and then it goes down, the egg will come out. And the egg will come out of the fallopian, out of the ovary and go down into the fallopian tube. And sperm can now get up there because that mucus is stringy and the pH of the vagina is alkaline, so it doesn't kill the sperm. They can go up there and you can have something called reproduction. Sperm can meet an egg and hallelujah, right? Well, after that period, what happens? Different levels of hormone cause those glands to produce different kinds of mucus that when the bacteria metabolize them, it becomes acidic, a low pH. Acidic kills sperm. And it's also not stringy, so it can't climb up. So the woman can't get pregnant during those times. What? Who thought of such a... Oh, God. Anyway, so if you have an adenocarcinoma of the cervix, it's because it's a gland, not a squamous cell, which is a flat epithelial type cell. And that's the only difference. So the answer is no, you don't treat them differently. Chronically fermenting cells are chronically fermenting cells are chronically fermenting cells. And in the Rockefeller language, cancer is cancer is cancer is cancer. Okay, and it doesn't matter where it started. The biology is the same. The differences in different locations is the differences in those particular organs and what the kinds of stuff they're doing and how they're drained and what lymphatic drainage they have and all that. So the differences that you'll see are on the based on the location and the physiology of that particular organ, but not the fundamental biology of RECNAC, chronically fermenting cells. And yay, Jenny. Everyone read that, right? I healed what they called stage 4 terminal, inoperable, and incurable cancer. Naturally, plant-based diet, no alcohol, cigarettes, sugar, and tons of cannabis. Now I'm in the best health of my life. Fantastic. That's exactly what we're talking about. That's exactly what we're talking about. Come back to earth. The answer is, why are we all sick? Why are we getting degenerative conditions? What's going on? Because we're getting toxic. We're getting toxic. And what aging is actually is the accumulation of toxins, right? And when these toxins accumulate to a point where they start affecting the functioning of organs and glands, such as endocrine glands, which produce hormones, and the hormones start to decline, then you see the what we call the phenotypic, or we see the expression of aging. Okay, do that. And I think we talked about this before. There was a experiment done in 1915 where they took chicken heart cells and kept them alive for like 50, 60 years by just keeping the waste from accumulating. All right. So whatever reason you have, unless it's anatomical and you can't do it, if you have a colon and it's intact and you've got an ileocecal valve and all that stuff, get colonics. And if you don't have an ileocecal valve, you can still do enemas. You got to clean it out. By the way, you got to clean out your colon. Think about it. What's the big deal? Why do so many people, especially men, have this big weird thing about the colon? No one's going. It's a one-way street, man. No one's going in there with. Come on. I'll tell you what. I've mentioned this to whenever I've had people to the clinic who didn't want to get colonics. I said, well, listen, you do it. And if at the end you feel that you really made a mistake, we're going to do everything we can to get it back inside of you. Okay. I don't know, maybe that'll help. Get it back in. I know you don't want to lose it. Well, I don't want to lose too much weight. Well, that's not, you want fecal weight? Yeah, I'm up to, you're really thin. And now, I'm up to 98 pounds now from 93. But I haven't gone to the bathroom in about a week. Huh. Great. That's great. You're trying to gain weight so you can be healthy, right? Is that the kind of health? Increased fecal weight? No. Shall I repeat that? No. Clean it out. Get rid of the waste. You don't want it. What you want to develop is muscles and some fat. You don't want a lot of fat, but you need fat. Fat's an organ, does lots of good stuff. It's necessary. In fact, for a woman to menstruate, she's got to have a certain ratio of fat to non-fat, to lean. So fat's necessary. It stores energy. It's got functions. Yeah. All right. So beautiful, Jenny. I'm glad to hear that. So you know what? I got to turn on the air conditioner. Please give me 1 second. I'm sorry if that's pretty noisy. I really if it's just give it a few minutes, I'll be cool a little bit, then we'll be all right. All right. Sorry. Okay. So now, okay, so I hope I answered the borax question. And really, so what I'm trying to tell you is that, no, you've got to achieve balance. Like you wouldn't say, well, I'm not going to eat leafy greens, peanuts, pecans, avocados, that because they got boron. No. That's not it. And by the way, going back to the glutamine glucose situation, glutamine is the fuel source for your lymphocytes, which actually eat chronically fermenting cells and eliminate them. You can't get rid of that. Glucose not only is a fuel source, it is pretty much the carbon backbone of fatty acids and stuff like that. So with how we can make cells and everything else. I mean, so let me see. Okay, so what was the next question? Come on. I mean, I'm so slow. I'm so slow. Is alma powder equivalent to vitamin C? Is it okay to mix them together? Isn't it amla? In the 7-to-7 thing? Yeah, you can. This is it's actually called Indian gooseberry. And it's been used for eons in Ayurvedic medicine. And it's very powerful. It's got lots of phenols, flavonoids, phenols, but it's also got, I think like a small amount of it is equal to like 100 oranges. It's like got a lot of vitamin C, but yeah. Can you use that I wouldn't replace it unless you're eating a lot of it. But I would do the 7-to-7 protocol and add that in for sure. Yeah. Can turkey tail mushrooms kill cancer stem cells? If yes, powder or supplements is okay. Okay, so turkey tail mushrooms are one kind of medicinal mushrooms. Mushrooms are part of a phylum that's that are funguses that are different than animals and plants. They function in multiple ways, but basically mushrooms or funguses are the undertakers of the world. What they do is they take dead material and turn it back into that which is now ready to support life. In other words, they take it, they transition it. So at the end, when let's say an animal dies on the ground, first of all, the insects come, and then the microorganisms have already been there, and the funguses. And in the end, it's the fungus. And the fungus actually take it and turn it back into healthy, wonderful soil and things like that. That's it. And that's why 10% of our gut is funguses. We got to have candida and stuff like that. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so one of the questions that always comes up is, well, gosh, I have candida. Can I eat mushrooms? Yeah, they're really different. They're different. Just like a horse is not the same as a snake. I can ride a horse. I can't ride a snake. I wouldn't want to ride a snake, especially not the ones around here. They got some cobras here. Fortunately, cobras don't want to mess with us. Fortunately, but anyway, so you can't. So yeah, you got candida. That doesn't mean if you're eating portobello mushrooms, you're gonna start growing portobello mushrooms out of your ears. No. It's not like that at all. And they're not going to contribute to the candida problem, because the candida problem is really a dysbiosis. Okay, and it's not a candida problem. Candida is opportunistic. It's taking advantage of the fact that a lot of the good guys are gone now because of whatever. We've been taking antibiotics or whatever we've been doing, and that's all that's happening. We've got to restore balance, and God makes a condition known as fantastic health. That's what it is. The glory always goes to God. Always goes to God. There is no other glory. Yeah. Anyway, but okay. So anyway, so mushrooms, and we've been eating mushrooms for a long time. I think they first found discussions of them by the Sumerians. And Sumer, as you know, is about 4,000 BC. It's kind of before Egypt and all that, right? And not, I'm sure a lot of you know, but not everyone will know that it was about 150, maybe almost 200 years ago now. They found the land of Sumer. It was it's in the middle of Iraq. It was underneath the sand, and I think it's what Abraham. And then I think they said Abraham was from a place called Ur, U-R, and I think Ur might have been Sumerian. And anyway, what's very interesting is that when they uncovered the ancient land of Sumeria, they found a library of, cuneiform, where they, kind of like the Egyptian type writing, but it was Sumerian writing. And it was an intact library, like the only intact library we have, ancient library, because they've all been burned or destroyed one way or another. I wonder why. Anyway, so one guy that was an Israeli scholar by the name of Zachariah Sitkin read those. He was a contemporary. He just recently died a few years ago, but a relatively recent linguist on the scene, and he was able to read Sumerian, and he just wrote out these books. It's called the Earth Chronicles. Really interesting. 5 books, I think. This was years ago, 90s. Anyway, I read that book, blew me away. But just the reason I'm saying that, it actually turns out that all of the stories we have about Noah and about Abraham and about all of them were Sumerian stories. They had different names, but they were actually Sumerian. So the same thing. So my question is, well, I'm not doubting that these stories are real, but when did they really occur? And what so anyway, it's all confusing. Remember, the more you know, the less you know. But anyway, so that's the thing. So you figure 4,000 BC is when Sumerians were first using medicinal mushrooms, right? And then I think 5,000 years ago, there was in Ayurvedic medicine, they were talking about it, right? So it's been around for a long, long time. It's also part of traditional Chinese medicine. It's yeah. And then, of course, it just continued up. Marcus Aurelius and the Romans and Greeks, and it's always been around. It was a big deal. And I think so. Basically, that's it. I got to turn off now. It's cold. Excuse me. Yeah. Okay. So there are basically, when we're talking about mushrooms and the medicinal part of it, we're talking about something called beta glucan. And beta glucan is an array of glucose molecules strung together with beta bonds, which are different than alpha bonds, and they have amazing properties, and there's all sorts of them. And so, but these beta glucans, they're on the cell wall of funguses, mushrooms, yeast. They're on the cell wall. They're also in grains and other things. They're not just in mycotic organisms, which are funguses. And the really interesting thing about it is that they've been shown, and it is this is the only medicinal substance that's been shown to be effective at restoring health in earthworms, lizards, amphibians, fish, and mammals, and humans. Everyone. Okay, pretty amazing stuff. Okay, and why is it? And that's because there's actually a receptor on our macrophages and other T cells and things like that for it. Now, what's very interesting, even though it's kind of it's that receptor is not there for it. There's two basic receptors that can pick up the beta glucan. But because beta glucan is not something that's made in the human body, it actually stimulates both the innate and adaptive immune systems. So it stimulates the immune systems. That's its major effect. And so the answer is absolutely yes. It can be used. Can be used, and so but beta, so a direct effect on neutrophils, macrophages, natural killer cells, and dendritic cells. That's it. You've done it. You take care of that. It's going to do that. Now, the beta glucans, usually it's the 1-3 chains and branched, or it can be 1-4 or the 1 and 6. But what's really interesting is that the the one that seems to be the most medicinal is the 1-3, not much more so than the 1-4 and 1-6 of the beta glucans. Okay, so yeah, can I take just beta glucan? Yeah, if it was extracted properly and you have a reliable company that did it with cold and not heat. Yeah, right. Then yeah. Anyway, but what's very amazing is that for about 30-40 years now in China and Japan, it's been considered conventional, and you write it by prescription. Now they've taken one from the maitake. Was it maitake or the shiitake? Anyway, I can't remember. They took it and they've actually they've isolated the one aspect of it, and they've turned it into a medicine, and it's been really amazing with breast cancer, breast fermenting cells, colon fermenting cells, and all the different ones, right? It also makes, whenever they're going to do chemo or radiation, it makes it easier and better, and they have less side effects, so they're really good. But the main ones are the reishi, the turkey tail, which is also called Coriolis versicolor, right? Shiitake and maitake. Those are the main ones. There's others. There's Agaricus blazei, which is really good too. But those are the main ones. How does it work? Well, when you ingest them, they find their way into the small and through the stomach, and they arrive at the duodenum relatively unchanged. And then they're picked up either the epithelial cells lining the duodenum, or they're picked up by macrophages, which are white blood cells lining and that's how they get started, and they transport it all over, and they do all kinds of amazing things. But anyway, so the two kinds of receptors that it binds to, one is called the toll-like 2 receptors, which are very important, and the C-type lectin receptors. Yeah, and they're all in Peyer's patches in our gut. And so, lectins are not all bad; they're necessary for life too. Yeah. Anyway, now these toll-like 2 receptors are receptors that are on white blood cells that allow them to know there's something that's entered the body that needs to be eliminated. Okay, if you activate that system. Yeah. So yeah. So yeah. So and Peyer's patches, by the way, in our gut is a long tube. It's 10 meters or 30 feet long, and in it is the food that we've eaten and chewed and there's digestive enzymes and all that sort of thing. And then whatever gets absorbed, when it goes through and it gets absorbed, it has to go through the immune cells. Right? It has to go through the immune cells. And those are that's why most of our lymphatic system organs and are in our GI tract, because that actually is where the battle between the inside and the outside of the body is happening. So anything inside the GI tract is actually outside of the body proper. Just like anything in the bladder is urine, is not in the body. It's sitting in the bladder. It's going to be eliminated. But yeah, it's in the body, but it's held. It's secluded, sequestered. Same as in your colon. You have feces. The feces is not in the body, because if anybody gets into your blood, you're going to go into septic shock and probably die. But it's in the colon. It's being held. So it's being same thing. Anything in that whole. But as it gets absorbed, it goes in and it gets, and we have what are called Peyer's patches up and down, which are full of lymphoid tissue and stuff like that. So it's all good. So anyway, and in there there's full of macrophages, monocytes, neutrophils, dendritic cells, natural killer cells. They're all there. They're all there. What do they do? When they get activated, down regulates the inflammatory cytokines like tumor necrosis factor alpha, IL-2, IL-11, all that. And then it upregulates things we need to cytokines we need to recruit immune cells like interferon gamma. So it's like kind of knows what to do. Well, who made it? I mean, who made it? It certainly wasn't made by Pfizer, and it wasn't made by Moderna, and it wasn't made by Johnson & Johnson, and it wasn't made by William Henry Gates III, and it wasn't made by any of these people. It was made by God, and therefore it's fantastic. Anyway, so they're using them, in traditional Chinese medicine. They use it for century, millennia, for lung problems. So anyway, the turkey tail that's used in Japan is called PSK, and the PSK is something that they've extracted from it, and that's the one that's approved and used by conventional, insurance pays for it and all that sort of thing, right? So pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. And there's different kinds of mushrooms. There's all kinds of them. You can learn a lot about them, but they're really, really important. So it's not just turkey tail. They're all very, very important. There's one called schizophyllin, which actually decreases lung metastasis and increases lifespan, just that, right? And they found out it does that because it increases the infiltration of the T cells, of the T lymphocytes into the tumors and the T helper cells. And then there's gryphylin, which is not only inhibits sarcomas, not carcinomas, but sarcomas, but turns on the Th1, turns off the Th2 response. Very, very important. So these are very, very important. Very, very important. So, and one of the things to keep in mind is that, and I've talked about this before, but the tumor microenvironment is the environment around where the malignant cells are. And that environment, remember, it's got full of acid and low oxygen and all kinds of nasty things in there. So when the like macrophages and other immune cells show up and they're all ready to fight, they get modified, they get changed. So the macrophages become what are called TAMs, tumor-associated macrophages. Now they start working for the tumor to make it grow. Same with neutrophils, even the fibroblasts, which are part of the connective tissue nest, tumor-associated fibroblasts. In other words, because of the chemical milieu down there, it's modifying how they are. You understand? So it's, So, but one of the beautiful, beautiful things is that these mushrooms can modify that, can modify the tumor TAMs, can put them back into M1 instead of M2, and get them back working to eliminate these chronically fermenting cells. Okay, so mushrooms can do that. Even those little button ones are powerful. They can do that. Those little button ones. Portobello. By the way, did you know that if portobello is exposed to light, produces vitamin C, and you can, I mean, vitamin D, vitamin D. Yeah. Yeah. And, but anyway, those button mushrooms too, also for anybody, everyone should be interested. But they have the fact of being aromatase inhibitors. So prostate cancers, breast cancers, and stuff like that. These button mushrooms have aromatase inhibitors, right? In addition to saw palmetto, in addition to eating cruciferous fruit and stuff like that. So the big question that always comes up, I can't find it anyway. But there's a big controversy about whether or not you should eat raw mushrooms or cooked mushrooms, right? So you can get the the extracts, the beta glucans, like that. And if you had a good company, that's fine. But on the other hand, you can eat them too. So, but the big controversy over eating cooked versus raw mushrooms is agarotine. Agarotine is it's a chemical that can modify DNA and things like that, and so they're saying it's dangerous. But it was an interesting study where they took mice and they put in their water agarotine, pure agarotine, and just they ate their whole lives. They did not have an increase in cancer. Nevertheless, it's something to be. I wouldn't eat it. I wouldn't go drink it. But so cooking gets rid of it. You know what else gets rid of it? Refrigerating it, storing it, age, time. So by the time you go get it at the market, it's probably been sitting around. It got picked a long time ago. The agarotine is very small, very small. So what I'm saying is you can marinate mushrooms. You can use salt to kind of soften up the chitin and things like that, and eat it raw. I used to eat portobello mushrooms raw all the time in New York. We would put salt on them and use that, and then clean the salt off. But they'd be soft, and then use them as the two buns for our hamburgers, because I was eating raw 100% at the time. Anyway, so by the way, the same thing that agarotine, the bad thing in mushrooms, the same thing it does with DNA, so do antidepressants. Yay! And remember, who was that person earlier who said, but your friend had worms crawling out all over, and they put her on antidepressants. Okay, best way to deal with shock and trauma of diagnosis. Good question. Best day. Okay, first of all, you've been lied to. You've had a spell put on you. You've been cursed. That's what a diagnosis is. It's a curse. They're telling you that you're not whoever you are anymore. You are this thing, and that's not who you are. That's not what you are. Okay? That is only one snapshot of one part of your body at this moment, at that moment in time. And that does not define who you are. Just like a still on a movie set. You take a picture of, Brad Pitt jumping and Angelina Jolie jumping together. You take a picture. Is that the movie? No. Is that who they are? No. All right. So anyway, it's a still. Okay. So the first thing you know is that. And number two, everything else they say that, about your timeline in life and all that is a 100% lie. So this is what you got to know. They don't know what happens with people who don't follow their rules. When you walk out and never come back, they have no data on you. The only data they have are people that did their programs and they did research on them. They don't have data on the people that left, but I do, because they come to me. And they come to me many years after they were told they were going to die and they're not dead. And they didn't do anything, but they still got, 7, 8 years later, and they were told they didn't have more than a year. So the first thing you got to know to get rid of the shock and awe is realize that everything you think about this condition is not true. These are just chronically fermenting cells. And the way they got there, they can unget there. You can turn it off. Okay? That's it. Just like, give you an example. We had a guy with coronary artery problems, right? He did before he came for a fast, they did a angiogram where they stick the catheter all the way up here and look into the coronary artery, and they found that, oh my God, it was like 95% occluded, blocked. So he was going to have to get bypass surgery. Instead, he came and did a fast and went back, did a fast for 28 days, and went back 21 days, 28 days, went back, and when they did the cardiac cath, they go, oh my God, it's only 60%. You don't need a bypass. So however things get the way they get, they can unget the way they get. And if you got chronically fermenting cells, well, let's make them not need to chronically ferment anymore. Let's get rid of the reason why they're chronically fermenting. Okay. And we can do that. That's what we do. All right. That's what we need to do. So the best way to deal with it is to understand that it's all a lie and you've been hypnotized. And here's the problem: because of what they said and because if you grew up in this society, those words stuck in you like a screw worm deep in your heart. So you got to meditate. You got to learn to meditate, and you got to listen to me. You got to read books. Don't read books about cancer, because that's not a real thing. You read books on healing and all that, and nutrition and all that sort of thing. And no, sorry, Helen, we're not open yet. I'm thinking February. January, February. In Bangkok and Phuket, the question was, yeah. So anyway, so that's how you deal with the shock, because the shock and the shock and trauma is because they told you you're going to die within this period of time. Well, we can't save you, but we can make your life miserable. Yeah, we're good at that. We can't save you, but we're going to make what? There's look at don't worry about if you did the right thing or not. You just, when you're in the doctors, one thing that I think they'll understand pretty clearly is you can stand up and you can just flip them off and use whatever words you want. They're going to get mad? Oh my God. But then I can't. What if I need to? Listen, if you need a test or anything like that, and this particular witch or warlock is mad at you, there's millions of others that want your money in your business. So don't worry about it. You're not going to run out of these guys, unfortunately. All right. So that's how you deal with by knowing it's a lie. Okay. Can IPT cure stage 4 colorectal cancer? If so, why IPT instead of high dose chemo at this stage? Okay. So we're talking about curing again. We're not curing anything. We're talking about stopping the chronically fermenting cells, because you can only cure something that is a disease. And these are not diseases. It's not a thing that got into you. In other words, can you stop the process and turn it around? And the answer is yes, with IPT. Now, why IPT and not high dose? Because both will shrink the tumor or tumors. But the high dose will also ensure that you get metastasis. And there's lots of studies. Look up a study called The Paradoxical Effects of Chemotherapy. And that's one study, but there's a lot of them. Good morning, Holly. Good evening, Colleen. Yeah, my honor to speak the truth. So the high dose enhances all of the 6 or 7 steps necessary for successful metastasis, whereas the low dose doesn't. In fact, the low dose actually is almost like a homeopathic, where it stimulates the immune system So they call it, in the conventional world, they're calling it metronomic. But if you use insulin and metronomic, which is low dose, then you're going to get some really good benefits. Yeah. So that's why, and that will bring down advanced stages. But depending on what you're talking about too, you got to do a lot of other things, not just these one. That's just one part of a major, complete, comprehensive program that involves everything, including the way you sleep and eat and interact, and all IVs that you get, the vitamin C's, and all the things that you get. So it's all part of a very, very complex and comprehensive way back to health. And so you need an intense 6 weeks or 8 weeks, whatever it is, and then you can slow down. But just to turn around the process, because the idea is to turn it around. It's going this way and you don't want it. You want it to go back the other way and you have to regress. Okay. And it's not like chopping it off and killing it and it's done, one day. That's why people say, yeah, but I tried it. A lot of times I hear people say, I tried alternative and it didn't work. What did you mean you tried it? What did you try? What did you do? Well, they gave me vitamin C. Okay, what kind of vitamin C? How often did they give it? What was the frequency? What was your plasma level? And what else did they give you? Did they tell you what to eat? What time did you go to? There's too many other. Anyway, I find that most people. So don't think, I did that, it didn't work. Okay. If a root canal is combined with ozone therapy, would you consider that safe for health? Absolutely. Real question? Yeah. No, you mean giving a root canal with ozone? No. Because you give a root canal, when you put in other words, when you root canal a tooth, you're taking out the nerves and you're taking out the blood vessels and you're filling it with cement and you're leaving that dead part of the tooth in there with the cement that already now like buried these trillions of little microorganisms that are in there, and they just make a big cavitation in the bone underneath it, and they produce biotoxins and all sorts, and they're on meridians, which are connected to your organs. Bad news. I don't care how much ozone you put in there, it's going to be bad news. You don't leave dead tissue in the body. You don't. If we had a dead tissue in our body, like for example, appendix bursts, what happens is the body sequesters it and grabs it. It blocks it off. The omentum can do that. So yeah. But if you take a root canal out, you clean it really well, then you ozonate it, then you cover it with, or you can use the laser as well, of course, and then you cover it with your own platelet-rich fibrin. Then yeah, what would you suggest is the best diet to follow? I find this very confusing. Yeah, I still am baffled as why is it confusing. And I mean, I know why it's confusing because you got people out there saying different things, but listen, all the vitamins and phytonutrients and flavonoids and chelated minerals and all that stuff that we need to get, you get from plants where they're made. And if you're going to get it from an animal, you're going to get it by eating the animal's intestines where it has undigested plant. Or you can drink the animal's blood that it just absorbs some of that stuff, and that will help too. So if you're going to eat an animal and you want to get as much possible nutrition as possible, then you've got to eat the innards, right? You got to eat the intestines, eat the liver raw, of course, and best while the animal's alive. Eat the heart, take a bite out of the heart while it's pumping, and get that blood. Drink that blood. Or I got an idea. How about some green juice? How about a fantastic, wonderful salad? Oh my God. And you're going to get it all from the original, right? Instead of eating the middleman called the grass-fed cow. I eat nothing but grass-fed cows. Well, okay, good. I eat the grass. Because I want to be as strong as a cow or as strong hippo. Hippos, a hippopotamus. Try to deal with it. Okay. I want you to get, 50 guys and see if you can move a hippopotamus or an elephant. Okay. But hippopotami eat about 150 pounds, about 70 kilos of grass at night. They like eating at night. So their bulk, their protein came from grass. And you all remember a book called Daniel, and you remember chapter 1 in Daniel. Remember what he said to the king? Look, got an idea. You tell your guys to eat the dead animals, drink the wine, hang out with each other. We're going to bed early. We're eating plants and no alcohol. What turned out with that? So anyway, really, there's only one diet to follow. It's called the human diet. And since we don't know what it is because we're brought up in the world of, what are we brought up? We're brought up in the world of, we're brought up in an artificial world with different perspectives on how one should live their lives called cultures. And at the center of every culture is that is the heart of that culture, and it's called its cuisine. And so what runs in families is habits and lifestyle. That's what runs in families. Yeah, okay, there are situations where there are genetic things that are transferred. I'm not saying that. But in 95% of the time, what runs in families are habits. And deeply held emotional things and stuff like that, So I'm not underestimating them. I'm just saying it's not genetics. That's all I'm saying. I'm not underestimating the power of growing up in what we do. Because if you grew up eating live monkey brain at the age of 3, and you did it with your mom and your grandma, and it's got some real powerful emotional stuff with you, and you don't want to stop it, and then you learn to like it. You taste good because, yeah. Or if you grew up eating burgers, or you grew up eating spiders, Cambodia, they love spiders. There's this one tribe down in South America who's I think their whole culture is based around the tarantula, and they've got these shamans who and it's very interesting. These guys, understand, they have no, they're just wearing like a loincloth. They have no shoes on. They walk through the jungles, no shoes on, and they never get stung by or bitten by tarantulas or anything because they're indigenous. They're part of this world. They're not part of the artificial world, which you and I belong to. We are artificialites. We are hybrid mutants. Yeah, hybrid. Some of us are mutated, but hybrid Earthlings, and we don't know how to love. We don't. None of us. How many of you know how? How many of you could take all your clothes off, go into the jungle, and survive? What do I think about doing a radical hysterectomy for cervical cancer? No. I mean, I don't know your condition. I can't say that to you. I apologize. What I'm saying is that I don't know what's going on. If it's depends on many things. How far advanced it is, how sick you are, whether or not you're having severe pain. There's a lot of things, but in most cases, cervical cancer. Here's what I'm saying. If a radical hysterectomy worked and it was gone, you're done, it's over, you're not going to ever, sure. That's not what happens at all, because then they want to poison you and irradiate you. That's what they want to do. They're not just happy with that, taking it out. No, they want to now poison you. And why, if you ask them why, they're not going to tell you. Oh, the data shows. Okay, well, show me that data, dude. Come on, show me that data. What data are you talking about? Any doctor you ever talk to, including me, you say, thank you very much for your opinion, Miss Learned Woman or Man. And I'm going to stop there because I don't think we have anything other than X's and Y's. Are there W's and Z's and P's? Or is it just 2 X's or an X and Y? Yeah. Klinefelters, okay, we've got an XXY. Okay, but they're still phenotypically a male. And because you got that Y, as long as you stick that Y in there, you're in trouble. Now they have these other ones where the Y doesn't quite form a Y, and it kind of becomes X'd, and they come out just like females. Yeah, but anyway, basically it comes down to male and female. So anyway, can you get it? I had a root canal. You get it removed. Can you? You have to. You got to find a biological dentist, and you call Dr. Emma. Abramayan in Glendale. That's where I would go, Glendale, California. But she's she's not there to. She's she's got same kind of ethics as I do. I'm not here to get you to be my patient. She'll say, oh, you're living here. Well, here, there's all these options you have. Anyway, but you got to find something. You got to make sure that these people that you get that thing out, because whatever meridian it's on, whatever organs it's going to will absolutely cause problems. Okay, we know that 100%. We know that. So the best diet to follow is the human diet. These are plants, because what I'm saying is, if we are naked and in the jungle, we don't have the equipment to kill animals. Neither do we have the desire to eat an animal alive. I mean, there are freaks that do anything. I mean, you'll find and people do these things just to be freaky a lot of times. So yeah, I'm sure you can find somebody that likes to eat live animals. Okay. But in general, right, you don't you're hungry for chicken. Do you stare at do you go to a chicken coop and look at all the chickens and kind of go, no. And we're also not attracted to corpses. Some people are, and hopefully they get locked up for it. Actually, you know what? Someone who does weird things to corpses, the person's not there anymore. I don't know. But anyway, I'm sure you'll find a human who can do that. But other than that, we were not equipped to kill animals and eat them. Trying to bite their neck, and like the cat, either a bunch of hyenas will do, or a panther or cheetah. They don't have cheeks, and their teeth only move vertically, and they have sharp teeth, so they're able to get in there and they break it. We can't. We have a really, really hard time of doing that. Our cheeks get in the way. We wind up biting our cheeks. I mean, it kind of even looks unnatural for, what was that movie? Well, wasn't there a TV series? Yeah, there was a TV series with, everybody liked it. There was a big thing about vampires for a while. I forget. But you go back to Dracula. Anyway, the Dracula, they always have to have these long teeth. And why do they put those long teeth on Dracula? Because humans don't have elongated cuspids. Canine. They say, well, if we weren't meant to eat animals, how come we have canines? You don't have canines. Open the dog's mouth. Open the lion's mouth. If you forgot what a canine, look what they're talking about a canine. Yeah, it's in the position that we refer to as canine, but it certainly doesn't function to puncture. It functions more like an incisor. Come on, this is not hard stuff. Not hard stuff. You've been fooled. We've been fooled. We grew up with 100% lies, okay? That's what we grew up with. Get your root canal, Colleen. Find a biological dentist, get it out, and have them check everything else while you're at it, okay? So now, don't be confused about diet. It's easy. Should a woman do hormone blockers for breast cancer? Well, first of all, breast cancer is not because of hormones. When you have an imbalance of hormones is when you can see something that's called chronically fermenting breast cells. Okay. Now, now, by the way, breasts, fallopian tubes, vaginas, hips, all these things happen to have estrogen receptors. Why? Because that's the way they were designed to respond to estrogen. Estrogen has a purpose. There's two kind of receptors, alpha and beta. Alpha makes things blue, and beta makes things shrink. All right. So you want to get on. What you want to do is you want to get a lot of phytoestrogens from soy, and you can use the aromatase inhibitor that's found in mushrooms, and there is Flax even downregulates alpha receptor. I mean, it's amazing. Yeah. So you can get not only the benefit, and you don't knock out your hormones because you get a shot of Lupron, you get a shot of one of these other ones, which knocks out your pituitary gland, stops the whole cascade. You just went from being imbalanced to being extremely, incredibly imbalanced. Okay. So things can't get better. You can't get better by becoming more imbalanced. You have to become balanced to restore the integrity of this being so that it can function. You have to become balanced. That's what you got to do. Okay. We got to get balanced, not unbalanced. So no Lupron, none of that stuff. Tell the doctor who wants to give you Lupron that you're going to do it after they've done it for about 3 months. Want to make sure it's okay. And then, by the way, doc, I know you would never suggest I do something that you wouldn't do, right? Because I'm that way. If I'm going to tell you to do something, I do it. You name it that I recommend, I do it. Except IPT. Which is why I want to get rid of it someday. I hope to get rid of it. I've been working on it. Okay. How to get balanced, living a life that is as close to natural as possible. What does that mean? That means going to bed early, 7, 8 o'clock, waking up early, doing meditation, prayer, reading about healing and health and nutrition and scripture and health, great, fantastic stuff, and filling your head in the morning with good stuff. Then moving around, getting your body moving, keeping it moving. This body was made to move. We have muscles to move. It would be no fun if we were torsos. Okay, but move. Be kind. Keep your shoes off. I mean, you can't do all of this stuff depending on where you live, but approximate it, living a natural life and eat food that's human. We need to ground with our feet. We also need to ground with our mouths and our GI tract by eating tomatoes, not tomato sauce, by eating food that God made, not food that humans made. And that's it. I went over and it's late and it's all that. And I got a consult. So sawadee kap tukon. And aloha. Thank you again so much for coming. It was an amazing week.